What's up everyone, it's United Weather here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at what's eventually going to become Major Hurricane Helene as it moves through the Gulf of Mexico and eventually towards the Gulf Coast of Florida. We're going to be going over all the latest model guidance and the latest forecasts from the National Hurricane Center to give you guys a good idea of what you can expect with this system as it moves closer to the United States over the next few days before eventually making landfall as what looks to be a pretty strong hurricane. So starting off here with the National Hurricane Center's latest outlook, this is as of 8 a.m. this morning. You can see we do have two areas to watch here in the Atlantic. The one we're going to be focusing on, however, is going to be this area right here in the Caribbean. It does have a 80% chance of development over the next 48 hours, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a tropical cyclone formed here by the time I upload this video, and if not, maybe later this evening. We also have another area which we're watching here, which is just moving off of Africa, which is pretty rare for this time of year. We're now entering October. It is pretty rare that we see these systems move off of Africa here in the main development region in the Atlantic Ocean, which is basically this area right here, and actually see them develop. But we do have a system moving off to the west here, and this does have a 70% chance of development over the next 7 days. And we're also going to be having to keep an eye on this over the next week because it is expected to maybe come close to the United States. There are some models that have been hinting at that. However, like I just mentioned, our main focus and the most immediate threat to you guys is going to be this storm down here in the Caribbean. So taking a look at the spaghetti models here, this is the GFS. And as you can see, we do have a pretty large spread here. This is anywhere from Tampa all the way to, the Gulf Coast of Alabama here. And on top of that, you also want to keep in mind that the actual impacts from the storm can spread very far out, up to 100, even 200 miles away from the center. So even if you're not near one of these spaghetti plots here, you're still going to be feeling some impacts from the storm. Pretty much all of Florida is going to be impacted by this. Pretty much this entire circled area here should be feeling impacts in some sort of way from this system, according to the latest model guidance. Now, a lot of these members here are pretty strong. You can see those kind of pink, maybe dark purple colors there. Those would be major hurricanes. We're talking category 3, some even showing category 4 strength by the time this thing makes landfall eventually over the next few days. So definitely not a good sign. Again, if you are anywhere along this area here, I would start getting my hurricane preparations in place. And even if you're further inland, I would start preparing too, because if this thing makes landfall as a category 4, it could still be a category 2, maybe even a category 1 hurricane by the time it gets to you. You can see here the mean for the ensemble members, or the average pressure, by the time it moves about to central Georgia, central Alabama, is still 979 millibars. That would still be a category 1, maybe even a category 2 hurricane at that point. And that's, almost 100, 200, maybe even 300 miles inland. Now, looking at the latest intensity guidance, this is basically the intensity that every single hurricane forecast model is showing. And you can see there is 1, 2, maybe 3 models that get it all the way up to category 4 strength. And there is also a very large cluster here that get it up to major hurricane strength, which would be category 3 or higher. That is pretty much more than half of the forecast models get it up to major hurricane status by the time it makes landfall. So definitely we want to keep keeping that in mind. And you can see it is a pretty sharp drop off here. This is even a day after it makes landfall here. It makes landfall about 72 hours, and by 120 hours it's still like weak category 1 hurricanes. So that's why I'm saying anyone in the southeast should be prepared to see hurricane impacts from this storm. Of course, it's not going to be a major hurricane by the time it reaches you guys further inland, but you're definitely going to be seeing at least some hurricane impacts. So going ahead now and taking a look at the latest GFS model forecast here, you can see you do have your system down here in the Caribbean just to the south of Cuba. And if we continue to move forward here, this would be Tuesday morning. You can see it is a 994 millibar tropical storm here, again, just off the southwestern coast of Cuba. And through Tuesday and into Wednesday, it's going to continue to strengthen. Eventually, kind of punches a hole right through this little area of water here in between Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula. Which the waters here are very warm. It is very rare we see storms go right through here without interacting with any land. So there is really nothing to stop this storm from strengthening and using all the energy that we have built up in the Gulf of Mexico, especially with a pretty inactive hurricane season so far. There is a lot of energy here for the storm to use, and on top of that, there's pretty much no wind shear at all. Until this thing makes landfall, it's not going to be really ripped apart by any wind shear, so there's really nothing to stop this storm, and you're going to see that here on the forecast model. If we continue to move forward here, this is going to be 7 p.m. on Wednesday. It's already at 967 millibars. It's just going to continue to strengthen as you continue to move forward. Eventually here by Thursday night, you can see 944 millibars. This is right around Cedar Key, making landfall in the Big Bend here. Again, This landfall spot is not going to be exact. We are still, 3 days out, so things could shift. I will say the latest forecast guidance has been shifting a little bit further to the east. So that is a trend we're going to have to watch. There is a good chance we see some shifts here over the next day or two, especially as the storm hasn't even, fully developed yet. It is expected to rapidly intensify, but the storm actually hasn't, wrapped a center of convection yet, and that's why it's not a tropical storm or a hurricane just yet. So definitely still some adjustments are going to be made in this track here. This is just to give you guys a rough idea of what we're going to be dealing with. And as we move forward here a little bit more, you can see by the time it reaches, even South Carolina, northern Georgia, it's still a hurricane. This is still a pretty strong storm here. And that's why I'm saying that you really need to be preparing for these impacts as well further inland, anywhere in the southeast, because this thing is going to weaken very slowly as it moves to the north. And if we zoom out and take a look at the upper air pattern here, this is why it's going to weaken very slowly. You have this low pressure system right here over the southeast, and this is going to kind of pull the storm like this and wrap the storm around it. And basically what's going to happen is called the Fujiwara effect, which is basically when these storms kind of spin around each other. That's going to kind of prevent the storm from weakening too much until these two low pressure systems kind of finish their little dance, you could say. So if we move ahead forward here, you can see they rotate around each other. Eventually it does kind of get eaten by this low pressure system that's already here over the southern United States. So you can see that by Friday morning, it's still a pretty well-defined low pressure system here before eventually kind of getting eaten up by the pre-existing low pressure system. So by Saturday morning, the worst of the impacts should pretty much be done with by the time you wake up on Saturday for most of the southeast. That's not to say you're not going to get any rain or some, gusty winds, but it's not going to be anything too crazy like we're going to be seeing on Thursday and even into Friday night. With that being said, that is pretty much it for today's weather forecast video. I will be posting daily updates on this Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as the storm inches closer. I will leave a link to the National Hurricane Center website in the description below. Make sure to stay up to date with the latest information from them, especially for anyone in the southeastern United States. As I just mentioned, even further inland, you guys definitely need to stay up to date with this storm. And also check back every day for updates. Like I just said, I will be posting updates daily until this makes landfall. So with that being said, if you guys did enjoy today's forecast video, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It does help motivate me to make more videos for you guys. And it also helps get my forecasts out to more people so people can stay aware and up to date on weather like this. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and peace out.